Ammon Brown is joining us today. He is the VP of Product Growth over at SecurityScorecard. And Ammon, I will let you sort of give your background and kick things off here, and then we'll jump into, sort of what you're thinking about, what you're working on today, and we'll go from there. As usual, anybody questions, toss them in the chat, use a little hand raise feature, or just start talking. And it's all right if we talk over each other a little. We all know how this works. It's been a few years now of Zoom, so it is all good. All right, over to you.
Yeah, and I assume when you say give your background, you're not referring to like my kids' books and cheapo mini blind.
I do like those too, but
my actual professional background, if you can call it that. Yeah, so I'm Ammon Brown. I'm currently at SecurityScorecard, have been for well over a year now, running our product growth initiatives. So over the last couple decades, I was at Google in 2004, which I think is kind of notable. Moved into ad agency land for too many years. Wound up in a couple of small startups of my own and other people's. Most recently, I was at a company called Frame.io, which was acquired by Adobe. If anyone is in the video space, you might be familiar with it. And then for the couple of years prior to SecurityScorecard, I was at a company called X.AI, which was doing meeting scheduling, utilizing AI, as the name would imply. And that was acquired by a company called Visible. So upon acquisition, I moved over to SecurityScorecard. This one I hope will be acquired by the general public at some point. That's kind of the plan. So yeah, I think that's the Cliff's Notes of where I've been and what I've done. But for the most part, over the last probably 10 years or so, I've sought out opportunities to find companies with inherent virality and some sort of loop that can be optimized, something that can be built upon, something that is product led in the sense that most people's first interaction with your company is through your product. They're coming in through that door rather than a marketing touch, a sales touch, or anything like that. Because that's the fun stuff that you can optimize on, and you can have hard data on how it's performing and what it's doing and whether or not it's filling your pipeline down the road. I'll pause there for questions because I don't talk about myself too much, but I can. Is anybody familiar with any of those companies, by the way? Okay. I see a couple of nods. Of course you are, Tim.
I was talking to Ammon about X.AI. I saw a presentation given by the CEO at a New York startup event. I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. It might have been like the NYC Enterprise Tech Start event, and really cool. Ahead of its time, I would say.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time, and it kind of outran its runway. And we really got product market fit and hit our stride about a year before we should have, and as such had to sell. So it was somewhat tragic, but that was a really fun ride, because that was just, when I talk about inherent virality, that's exactly what I mean. A meeting scheduling tool is completely useless without a counterparty. And so if I'm going to schedule a meeting, I don't just schedule with myself, I schedule with other people. And so there's a natural reason to draw others into the product and get them using it. And that's a lot of what my job at SecurityScorecard is now, is to identify the reason to bring other people into the product. There's altruism so SecurityScorecard is essentially third-party risk management in cybersecurity, where I can monitor my vendors, identify issues that SecurityScorecard sees in their digital footprint, and then let you know, hey, they've got a server that might be vulnerable, so you should let them know to go patch that. And you can let them know to go patch that by inviting them into the platform. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time, is figuring out exactly why you should invite people. The altruism is, well, everyone should be secure. Sure, but what's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you is potentially collaboration tools, so I can talk with them through the platform. That's why Figma is a $20 billion company, because they had collaboration tools. It's where you go to talk to each other. Potentially just pure selfishness. If my third-party vendors get breached and they have my customer data, well, that's a problem for me, and for my stock price. And so just nudging people and educating them about why they should be getting others involved is a little bit more of what I do at SecurityScorecard than what I did at X.ai, because it was very, very clear how you get other people involved. Likewise, Frame.io, which was inherently a collaboration platform. Again, it makes no sense to use it all by yourself. You have to bring other people in, counterparties need to be there, which lends itself very well to a freemium model, which, Tim, to your point, that was one thing that X.ai got to a little bit late. When I arrived there in early 2019, we immediately built out the free version, because if I'm inviting a counterparty, try before you buy is everything.
At SecurityScorecard, when you say to get other people in, is it people from the same company that would be your customer, just more engagement in that same company, or other companies?
It's both. So
Okay.
there's always going to be a practitioner, and sometimes multiple practitioners, especially if you're in the enterprise. You're going to have the security analyst, you're going to have the SecOps, all these guys, they're all going to be in the platform, and you want them inviting not just each other, but also the decision maker, the person that holds the purse strings, to get as many involved as possible. But that's just growth within an organization, kind of bottoms up. And so you also want them to get their vendors involved. We make our revenue when people start monitoring third-party vendors. And so getting those third-party vendors involved, it becomes a pretty powerful mechanism when you're doing business with a company and it's contingent upon you having a good score with SecurityScorecard. You're going to sign up for that tool and make sure that you manage your security footprint so that you can do business, like you can win contracts. And so that's a big part of it. Is there's a lot of companies that will monitor third-party vendors, but they're not pulling them into the platform to monitor themselves. Yeah.
I see
Thank
a
you.
question here. Lauren, did you want to ask it live? I know you're not on camera yet, so if you want to ask it, I'll give you a chance, and then otherwise I can read it for you.
Sure. Sorry, I'm just eating lunch, so I didn't think you'd all want to watch that. So we are moving towards product-led within our organization. I have actually a founder, but who's kind of in a sales capacity now, who's concerned that freemium will diminish our brand and reputation. We're an enterprise software, and I've wondered if you've run into that. And obviously, we can talk around marketing and how to handle that from a prospect or user perspective. But I'm curious what you've seen out there.
Yeah, it really depends. So we have a freemium model at SecurityScorecard because of the nature of our business. So if I invite a company into SecurityScorecard and I say, hey, get in here and fix your scorecard, I'm going to be continuously monitoring you, and it's a 2-week trial, that continuous is really not there. And if they have to pay in order to maintain their grade, then not only is my customer who invited them pissed off, but they're pissed off, and my support team is pissed off at me too. And that's just a lot of pissed offedness. As far as sales being resistant, I mean, they're going to be resistant to any change. It's like, the way that we've positioned our free offering is that this is a growth lever. It's all about customer acquisition cost. And our CAC is great because we have a freemium model that our competitors do not have. When you position it as a source of hot leads, that becomes something that resonates with sales. So when you have a free version, we can look and see, okay, there's a certain percentage are going to drop off in week 1, but the ones who continue to use it throughout the course of a couple of months, years even, those are ones that we can identify as good leads, and we can identify product usage trends and send those straight to the salesperson. So we have a number of sales signals that we'll ping over to our BDR team and say, hey, a free user just looked at the pricing page, then went into the checkout, came back out, and then looked at third-party monitoring. We have a bunch of different activities in the product that warrant an immediate ping to the entire BDR team, or just let's up their overall score, and once they pass the threshold, we'll pass them along. But as far as cheapening your brand, I wouldn't I wouldn't really see it that way. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, free is cheap, but you know, if you do it right, then you're not giving away the whole farm in your free version. You're finding what that increment of value is and limiting it to some degree so that people have an upgrade path, and that upgrade path goes right through sales. They'll love you after a while. Was there a hand raised? I don't know. I saw some chats too. Does that kind of address it a little bit?
I saw a chat from you, Sarah. Do you want to share your thoughts?
I was just saying, as a sales leader that's also managing a transition to product led, it sounds like an excuse because there's a fear of lost control. If somebody drops into the product and you don't have that opportunity to speak with them, they get an impression on your product, they don't understand it, then you miss that opportunity to work with them and control the outcome. And so I think if you can overcome that fear in some way and show them the benefit, then you might get past it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's again a lot of excuses, a lot of losing control, but it's a net benefit because again, customer acquisition cost is everything. And again, as long as you're not giving away everything in the free version, then it's just another magnet to get people. Esben, you had a question about, we have a freemium, it's quite hidden away. Our main CTA is request a demo. Couple things on that. Depending on where you're connecting from, you might be seeing something that's personalized. So I think we're using Mutiny on the marketing site. So if we think you're with an enterprise customer, we're probably going to ask you to request a demo and just skip the whole freemium experience. That's something that we test frequently back and forth with the marketing team to make sure that we're providing a single funnel. If I had my druthers, it would be a single funnel through the free account. But in some cases, if we identify a person as the perfect ICP, then we're just going to go straight to a demo and try to get you on the phone.
Thank you. Did you traditionally only have sales led, or did you start out having freemium and free trial?
It was traditionally sales led. We've always had a free version, but again, that was primarily to avoid pissing off our customers and their customers. It's only within the last couple of years that we've really started lubricating the wheels of the free version to really get it working for us as an upgrade path. I came on, when did I start? July of last year. And that's, we were about 6 months or so into that free to upgrade motion to really push on that.
Thanks.
It was a pretty bare bones free product prior to that, and it also offered way too much. So we trimmed back a lot of the features back to just what you need to manage your scorecard versus what you want, and it's paid dividends.
See a question here from Travis. Do you want to ask that one, Travis, or I can ask for you?
No, I can ask it. Hey, Ammon, with your freemium approach and being a security product, how do you get customers to trust putting their content or access to their environments with your product?
We don't. We need them to trust our ratings. So SecurityScorecard is an outside-in passive monitor. So we're scanning effectively the entire IP space of the internet and identifying CVEs. We're attributing IP addresses and domains to an organization based on a whole bunch of signal that we collect, but none of it is intrusive, connected. None of it goes behind the firewall unless you want to. And so our biggest challenge is getting people to trust our rating, that what they see there is accurate. And when they see those individual issues, they go, oh yeah, that tracks. That's totally a problem. I will go fix that and watch my score go up. You know, our biggest challenge is probably making sure that we're identifying what belongs to your company in terms of IP addresses, domains, vulnerabilities, and so on. And so we put a lot of effort into that. Our trust is really around whether or not our grade is an accurate description of your overall security. It's not so much trusting us with your data because it's all public data. Anyone could scan the internet like this if they had enough VC funding.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We had a good prompt from Alex here, which is one of the biggest and most important things in product-led, time to value. So what does your time to value look like? And if it's short, how do you do that? That's the question.
That is an excellent question. We're still trying to figure out our time to value, to be perfectly honest, because there's a couple of different personas that use SecurityScorecard. There's those that come in and manage their own scorecard. That's all they care about. That's all they need. And they will never upgrade. They'll never pay us money, and that's fine. And that's actually the vast majority of our free users. What we're seeing is that typically if someone is going to upgrade, they're displaying behaviors within the product that relate to third-party monitoring, so beyond their own scorecard. And for that, we've really made a push to try to segment them based on who we've identified them as, and nudge them towards third-party monitoring and the tools that they have some lightweight tools available for that. But our time to value is not as short as it could be, because I don't think that we do a very good job. We just today actually launched a new dashboard that is designed to shepherd you towards the places that we think you're going to find that value from day one. We've got new onboarding tools that walk you through, try to get you set up, prompt you to follow a company to monitor their scorecard. And then that dashboard is a constant reminder every time you log in that there's other tools that of which you can avail yourself. But again, compressing that is important, but there's a certain cohort of companies that they're going to come in, they're going to look at their own scorecard. That's all they want to do. And if you start hammering them with third-party risk management at enterprise price points, they're going to be really turned off. They need to get in, manage their own scorecard, get comfortable with the platform for themselves. And only then can you say, hey, great job with your scorecard. Have you thought about your third parties? And that's when they're more receptive to it. And so you don't want to compress the time to value, so to speak, too much, because you need them to self-direct. There's a great quote. This is not mine, it's somebody else's, but they said that your free users can contact you anytime they want, but they don't. And there's a reason for that. They don't need to yet. And so you have to give them time to acclimate and figure out the value on their own. You can't push them too fast.
Can I just quickly follow up on that? So there's a lot of analogy between what you guys are doing and what we do. We look at like brand marketing, but it takes time for us to capture the current state. So I was looking for that. Like when I say I click see your score and I fill in my info, do I immediately see a score, or does that prospect or free user have to go through a process and then wait a week or two to see kind of what they get back or something?
It depends. For a lot of organizations, we already have a score because somebody is already following that organization. So we've gone out and done the work of figuring out which IPs belong to you. For others, it takes longer. It also depends on how vast the digital footprint is, but we'll usually be able to provide at least a provisional score within 6 to 24 hours. And then within 48 or so, we've gone around and figured out what belongs to you. But we already have 12+ million organizations scored. So chances are we already have a score for the company.
Interesting. Great. Thank you.
Are you doing brand lift sorts of things?
Well, we look at all the brand marketing. Again, also most of our work is outside in, and also, people may already be tracking that brand because it's a competitor of theirs. So that's an interesting point. We may already have the data we need for some of the people who are coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. And likewise for us, they may be tracking a competitor, they may be tracking acquisition targets and other types of more sensitive companies. And so we don't want to say go invite everybody, because you probably don't want to invite your competitors in.
But do you also have a cost, like as they add, like is that growing? Like, because that's an issue for us kind of moving to PLG is like, we have to pay to collect this data. So
yeah, there's costs associated for sure. Our AWS bill is nauseating, but it is what it is, and we manage those costs. And we could score 100 million companies, but we don't, because there's just too much cost involved with that. So there's a small amount of cost, but realistically, we have 12 million scored companies, but a percentage of those is actively being monitored by other companies. And so those ones are being monetized. Like if 30 companies are monitoring one company that's scored, great, that company is now monetized. But for all the other ones that are unmonitored or scored and unmonitored, those are cost centers. But because it's the monitor, sure, we'll go with that. That's paying, then we're able to monetize a scored scorecard without having to charge the company that's being scored.
Thank you.
It's fun.
So 12 million companies is a lot of companies. We're not going to ever be anywhere near 12 million companies. So
I don't know how many companies have a big enough brand footprint to be noteworthy at that point. It's much easier to just scan supports and be like, nah, you're vulnerable. There was a question about partnerships.
Yeah, I was gonna say double up question here. Go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, so for partnerships, should play a huge role. It's a big push. It's a big part of what I'm doing now. We're after ubiquity because for us, because we have the free model, I look at it as at some point we want everybody to have to be able to claim their scorecard or to have to claim their scorecard. Like you can't not claim your Google business profile or your Yelp profile. You have to claim those and get involved. Why? Because your rating there is being consumed by everybody. And so you need to get involved in that conversation. Otherwise you're shut out. Brand marketing is a good analog for that. And so if our grades are everywhere, then every company is going to need to get involved and make sure that they're keeping up to date with the latest patches and that they're monitoring for new vulnerabilities and patching those and so on, because everyone else is watching. And it's, you know, there's a certain amount of social pressure that comes from bottoms up to get companies to adopt SecurityScorecard. And so partnerships play a massive role in that, to piggyback onto audiences or to include our grades in, say, firmographic data feeds, things like that, so that you can see that company has a C. Maybe I'll think twice about giving my credit card to them. So yeah, partnerships are really the only way to gain that ubiquity, because we're not going to go out and try to get a whole bunch of consumers to adopt our ratings. They need to just see those wherever they go, and eventually they start trusting us. Value give for free. So Ben, I'm just looking at your question there. Balance the value you get for free without giving so much in pricing is no longer attractive in the early stages. So in the early stages of monetization, we gave away too much. We were giving away detailed reports and some really pretty things that you can show your board about your cybersecurity program. And we kind of pulled that back a little bit, with the guiding principle being, we're happy to give you everything you need for free, everything you need in order to manage your scorecard. But we're not going to give you anything that you want. So the bells and whistles, that's going to be a different thing. We did find that there was a big jump between $0 and $12,000, which was our lowest plan paid annually. And so we introduced a self-monitoring plan and we moved a lot of our advanced reporting and workflow rules and a lot of cool bells and whistles onto sort of an intermediate self-monitoring plan that's like $4,800 a year. And so that was a little bit more palatable, and those become very good leads for us, because now they're being exposed to advanced tools that they could use for third-party risk management. And so when somebody signs up for a pro plan, we pass them to the BDRs. But it's a little bit trial and error with what features you give to what plan. But as long as you kind of have a guiding principle, then you can make sense of it. Like at X.AI, our goal was to get as many people introduced to the platform as possible. So we're not going to limit how many meetings you can schedule. We're going to limit certain things like the number of calendars and things like that you can connect.
Awesome. Quick question here on your growth function org setup. And then, oh, sorry, Miles, were you going to ask it?
Yeah, sure, Breezy. Thank you. Sorry to squeeze that last one in there. But yeah, just a pretty basic question. I'm just curious how your org is set up. Are you guys doing pods? I know different organizations have different ways that they set it up. So I'm just trying to get a feel for it and how you guys set yours up. And is it working? What you like about it? What you don't like about it? If you're willing to share as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ammon. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, sure thing. So we sit in the product organization. So I have a couple of product managers, each of whom have a handful of engineers, a designer that goes across the team, product marketing, a handful of those. And then we pull in marketing ops, ad ops, and other functions as needed collaboratively. But we live in the product org. So the drawback of that is that you're subject to the cadence of the overall product team for planning. We tend to move a little bit faster than when you're building enterprise software. We're out there experimenting and throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. The thing that I like about that, though, is that if you're going to be product led, then the growth team needs to live in the product org. It just makes sense. The other issue is that there's sometimes concerns around ownership, or rather blurry lines around ownership. So if someone else builds a really nice product for our enterprise customers, but neglected to build a free version or even a paywall for it, then should they be doing that, or should we step in and do that? And it's easy to deconflict these things, but those will arise when you have product teams dedicated to growth and then product teams dedicated to all the other chunks of the product.
Thank you.
Quick question to squeeze in at the end here. Specifically because when we mentioned time to value, or someone mentioned time to value, your face seems very top of mind for you. With the idea of showing or getting a user to understand value in order to reduce the friction to get to that value, once they have that emotional moment, then that friction kind of dissolves away. You mentioned you have your dashboard and in-app guides. I'm wondering, how do you get your users to actually understand what the end result's going to be, so that when they start to pursue the third-party monitoring, that they know that friction, those steps are going to be worth it?
There's a couple of things. One is we're actually going to launch trials here in Q4, so anyone can come in and opt into a trial. It's not sign up, get a trial automatically. It's opt into a trial, and that becomes a sales signal. Also, we overhauled our paywalls to be a little bit more specific and a little more clear about what you're actually going to get. And then we've done things like I mentioned, reporting and the really pretty board reports and such. We took that away from the free tier, but we added something that said, would you like a report? And a BDR will reach out to you and send you a report of your scorecard. And that becomes a pretty powerful, oh, you mean I can generate these on my own? So just finding ways to expose that value it's tricky, because a paywall is not a product that you can interact with. And so our experiment is going to be for free trials for a couple of weeks, just to see how people interact with the platform and whether we can get a higher upgrade rate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And right on time. Look at that. Oh, go ahead. You have something else?
I was just going to say, part of my raised eyebrows when you say time to value is just because I'm still playing pickup sticks with our data. Nobody's data is clean, and I'm still trying to clean that up. And so understanding it just requires good reporting and good product metrics. And that's something that I'm also very focused on. I have a lot of focuses. Anyway, that's us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Tons of questions today. So you can always connect on LinkedIn or whatever's the best way to chat with some folks. We also have many of you in the Slack Connect. So wherever you want to ask some questions, I'm happy to facilitate. But otherwise, thanks so much, Ammon. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
And I mistyped my email. Thanks, Breezy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Thanks a lot.